Well, we'll start off as a child in Sydney, and it was close to the ocean. My mother had me in Camperdown Children's Hospital, and we went back to my grandfather's. It was in Newtown, and it was an attached apartments all the way along, and we stayed there until we decided that yes, we'd move on. It was wartime. It was 1942, and we transferred from there out to the ocean beaches down in southern Sydney, down near the airport. We stayed at a little place called Five Ways at Astrolabe Road, and there was a school, and when I was able to get set, when we got settled, and I sat in a little swing. I remember my father made a swing out in the back garden, and then we had chooks, and they used to chase me, and I was not pleased about those chooks. We were very happy there, actually, in Astrolabe Road. It wasn't far to the beaches, and my father's sister and husband and two of her siblings were out at Malabar, and he had an engineering business. So Dad was able to have time. We'd take a tram out. There was no way of getting there except by a tram. And when we got to the beach, Mum said that her name's Joyce, she said I didn't go straight into the water. I had enough sense to go and play with the waves going backwards and forwards on the sand, not out to sea. So from that day onwards, water was I just loved the water. So we stayed there until Mother got not terribly well, and the doctors advised her to go to the mountains. And Dad was working in it was a place where it was a paper mill, and they produced books, and Dad would bring the books home if they weren't quite, they had torn edges or something like that. So at a young age I had a myriad of books, and I loved them, and I've been reading books all of my life. So after that we got to Canberra by steam train, and it was freezing. It was the 19th of the 9th, 42. And we got to this, we didn't have any way of getting from the railway station, but somebody must have, been waiting from his work perhaps. It was the big brick pit, and they were making Canberra Commons. They're as scarce as hen's teeth now, those bricks. They're a collector's item. So Daddy went off to work. Mum stayed there. Her condition did improve a little, and we had a brickworker's cottage which was weatherboard, copper out the back, and just a nice chest and a wood-fired Canberra, it was called. That was the name of the oven, and the jets. It was jet black on top because you had to keep it clean, and Mum was scrubbing and rubbing all the time. And I got chilblains. Daddy produced a lovely garden. We had our own vegetables. The Italians were across the way, and the Greeks up here, going to the Snowy Mountains to do the Snowy Mountains Authority work. And they would be away most of the time, and Mama's mother and all of the, they would be there with their vines growing. And Daddy would, a rotary hoe when the season was there. So then Daddy had an income. He'd saved and bought this rotary hoe, and he'd be out in all weathers, doing this for pocket, for money to keep us going, because it was still, after the war and everything was a bit up and down, and how's your father? So we had a cottage, a brick cottage, and there was a laneway, I remember, and I had little top school there. So we were very happy there. So then when we got to Canberra, it was all toffee and all the rest of it, but we were happy with our little cottage. And I went to school in a panel van. There wasn't any buses in those days. And then after that I went to the high school, and that was that was primary school. And then those that wanted to do languages went to Canberra High School. So I went there, and down the track that became an art studio and an art teaching college. And so all the things that I did in high school, I was transported back later to do finish my education. My grandmother lived in Sydney, and Papa used to wait at the train station, and I'd go down for school holidays, and Mum and Dad would just potter, do their work and whatever. And then I stayed with them for 2 years. They brought my piano down so I could continue my music, and I finished high school, and I wanted to stay and go to art school. However, it was difficult because Papi and Gran didn't have anywhere to live, so they came and lived in the cottage, and Mum had built another house. So she was up the top of O'Connor, and it was a beautiful home, central heating that Dad put in. And so then after a little while I met this man at work. I worked in the department of as a tracer, and then I got married. Ingrid came very, very soon after. My in-laws were, she was German and he was Latvian, and the children came out when they were about 9 and 11, if I remember rightly. And I met my husband through work. And after the babies, we stayed in Canberra, and we were there for 26 years in the one house, and I raised the family. And then after that, there was a little bit of untowards, and I moved out of home and left the family home and got work, and finished a little uni degree I was doing, and went nursing, dental nursing as well. And I stayed in Canberra for nearly 50 years, and then I thought another man came on the scene, so we got into a mobile home after we were married, and did the coast and found Bargara. And I've been very happy here. The climate suits me absolutely beautifully. And there was a little bit of argy-bargy, and we decided that, it probably wasn't appropriate to keep together. So I sold the Queenslander I had. We had redecorated and done it all up. It was lovely. Toffee-coloured floors and, oldie world, which I loved. However, the parting came, and I decided to buy a little unit, and I've been here ever since, nearly 20 years. So that's the story, except I did go back and nurse my mother. She was not well. My father died, and she wanted to stay in her little place, and by that time they'd sold the house and moved into a unit. And I looked after her on and off for 7 years, and then when she passed, I came back to Bargara. I'd had the place just as sort of a little sublet, just to pay the bills. And then here I am now, down the track, sitting with my lovely grandson. My daughter was recently, and my Tracy always rings and, "Hi, Mum!" And sounds so delightful. And I have got no visions of moving from this little place. My health is deteriorating, but I'm not